Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am thrilled. Do you know we have Perry Marshall here in our community? This is the OG. Have you heard of the 80/20 rule in marketing or the definitive guide to TikTok ads
Yeah,
or
that book.
or the number one selling book in Google ads or Facebook ads or the guy who corralled all these other people together for the AI seminar the last couple of years, or the guy that's behind the scenes on a lot of these seven, eight, and nine figure business owner exits. That I don't think there's anyone stronger in the world of marketing strategy than Perry Marshall. And we are in for a treat today. I am so thrilled that Perry came. This this is probably the most anticipated, I don't even call it a webinar, but training mindset business value creation event in my mind this year. So I'm so excited, Perry. I hope you guys are excited to see what Perry has to say.
So I want to talk to you all. Dennis, I love having you on, and you are one of the most provocative marketing speakers, and you always get people thinking about things that they can do in ways that they never thought about before. And so I'm just glad you're here, and we're going to have a super interesting conversation. And who who knows what this is? Anybody have one of these like you had one when you were a kid, I did, or your kids have one now. It's a Hot Wheels track, and they call this a loop the loop. And I want to talk to you about the transition that we are in right now. Um, you know, if you if you don't hit the button hard enough, the car lands on the floor. And if you do hit the button hard enough, then it goes around the loop and it goes into the next era. Well, so I want you to think about this little blue section of track before the loop. This is marketing before 1995, and this is marketing after 2000, and this loop is 1995 to 2000. I got to think most people here remember life before the internet, and hardly anybody had an email address, and hardly anybody was doing stuff online in the early 90s, and everybody was by the early 2000s. And we went around this loop, and we're in another loop now. And in the new loop, this blue part, this is like 2000 to 2022. It's internet marketing. What is that? It's search engines, it's email addresses, it's landing pages, it's social media. And then there's this loop, and the loop is AI. And then there's what's this? This is like 2027 and beyond. So the first loop was the internet, the second loop is AI. All the rules of marketing are in the middle of changing right now. And we're in this transition space. Like we are, we are like, well, don't drop your car, but we are about somewhere in here right now. Now, I didn't prep Dennis on any of this, but like Dennis didn't know I had a Hot Wheels track before 3 minutes ago. But Dennis, what does this shake loose for you?
We are in this roller coaster Hot Wheels loop, and I don't want to crash. I want to be prepared, and I don't want to be the car that falls down and isn't able to complete and get momentum outside of the cycle.
Yeah, Yeah, well, and let's think about the cars that fell down the last time. So the last time, phone books didn't do really well with the internet, and travel agents did not do terribly well with the internet, and newspapers did not do terribly well with the internet. But let me ask you a question. Are people using phones more now or less, even though we don't have phone books anymore? Are people using phones? Yes. Um, are people traveling? Are people traveling more now or less post travel agents? I mean, nowadays, almost everybody is like been to Europe or something. They don't have to be rich or anything. It's just kind of normal. We have a whole bunch of things that didn't exist. We have like instant, I pay you with my phone and I send you money. We have Airbnb, we have Uber, we have social media, we have SEO, we have PPC advertising, we have like all kinds of new stuff that's created billion-dollar economies. Like, I don't know anybody that wants to go back to phone books and travel agents. So why is everybody scared of AI? Don't you think that if AI does a bunch of mundane, boring stuff that nobody really wanted to do anyway, like transcribing, I hired transcriptionists for years and they would charge me $75 an hour to sit there and play a recording and pause and play and pause and play and type stuff. And now an AI will do it for about 10 cents or zero. Nobody misses the transcription job. They could do something better than that. Well, listen, AI is really changing marketing in a big way. It's changing what people even buy. It's changing what they will pay attention to. So for years, people would give away a free report or a white paper. Well, if you can go to ChatGPT and get the answer in 15 seconds, why are you going to sit there and watch somebody's 30-minute video hoping that 2 minutes of it will somehow matter to you? So this is changing lead generation. It's changing how you get people to engage. And I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning about 3 weeks ago, and I realized that we were in the middle of this Hot Wheels loop-to-loop transition, and that instead of travel agents and newspapers, now it's traditional marketers who can either cling to the old and become extinct or embrace the new machinery and become even super more relevant than they and super more powerful than they ever were before and create entire new industries that don't currently exist. And that if you want to adopt an equity mindset, you have to start with, how am I even talking to people right now? And so we're here to talk about equity mindset, but I had to start with my Hot Wheels track because you don't want to be the car that only makes it halfway around the loop. That ain't no fun. Dennis, your thoughts before I keep going.
What does this mean for digital marketing businesses? We see a lot of guys that are exiting are saying that AI is going to ruin that. And so they're going into other kinds of businesses. We've got a lot of agencies, a lot of consultants that do digital marketing. And so they use AI, but they're also kind of afraid of it.
Well, so let's go through this. So I think lots of businesses rely on, this looks right, buying ads on Google, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. There's lots of agencies, consultants, experts, coaches, and trainers. It's not just info marketers, but people who use information as a front end. People, if you have reports, videos, white papers, books, cheat sheets, downloads, and guides, the bar is raising on stuff. If you are a marketer who just relies on sheer numbers of subscribers or followers, if you just rely on SEO and keywords, if you just rely on, well, I got a really complex funnel, and so that's my protection against competition, I think you're in danger of being the car that only makes halfway through the loop. And just because you can't clearly see how the future is going to shape up or exactly what form it's going to take, you can go back to the previous loop, and we all know what businesses disappeared. And most of us are in businesses that were only possible because of the internet. Like, I'd like to see in the chat, how many of you, half of the stuff you did today would not have been possible in 1995 at all? Just put a Y in the chat. If you think back over what you did this morning, if you got on a Zoom call, or if you did a social media post, or if you rode an Uber, or if you own an Airbnb rental property, like, a lot of the stuff that we do was not even possible back then. And the stuff that made it possible put a bunch of things out of business. But what I say is that when technology kills an industry, it makes another new industry 100x what it was before. So search engines are 100 times bigger than phone books ever were. And things like Airbnb and Travelocity are 100 times bigger than travel agents ever were. So I'm just curious, how many of you are a little nervous about how AI is redefining your business and your marketing and changing the way that your customers interact and buy things? I am. Let's see. Kyler's asking me to make Dennis co-host. Here we go.
Yep.
I got
Matt's not nervous. He's excited. He gets more leads from ChatGPT now. Taylor gets more leads. The more I use it, the less nervous I become, strangely. I'm seeing its weak spots, and those weak spot is humanity. My humanity. Thank you, Donovan.
Yeah. So if you want a valuable business, in 5 years, there are 5 steps. And I want to remind you something. We're going to talk about selling businesses today, but this presentation is relevant to you even if you have no intention whatsoever of selling your business. And here's why. If you didn't sell your business yesterday, you bought it today. You bought it when you rolled out of bed. And it's just like owning a car. If you didn't sell your car, you bought it. Do you want a car that has cheeseburgers stuffed in the back seat and French fries on the floor and chewing gum in the little ash can. And like, is that the kind of car you want to drive, or do you want to drive a car that is fresh and new and smells good and drives smoothly and had an oil change 1,000 miles ago? Because if you're driving it, you're owning it. And just like with cars, a lot of us, we create a much nicer business for somebody else than we ever create for ourselves. And I want to challenge you, why don't you create a business that you love to own and that you love to roll out of bed and either dig in and go do stuff and go build that business, or go do something else because your business allows you to do it. Like, we have a client named Anthony Hill, and he has a company called Anthony's Lawn Service. And in the last 2 years, Anthony has largely been able to liberate his personal schedule from the business. And one of the things he discovered, because he's got a lot of time flexibility, is he enjoys going on a site where they're cutting down a tree or landscaping a lawn and just showing up and seeing what's going on and walking around and helping. Dennis knows him really well. I think, don't you guys get together physically multiple times a year?
Yeah, we were in San Diego at the Wild Animal Park. We went around, cut down trees together, and might even see him next week if he's around.
You may love doing your business, but you love it more when you don't have to. And so, how do you get to the point where you do what you do because you love it or because it's really important to you, and not just because you've got a gun to your head? Well, here are the 5 steps. They're right here on the screen. Number 1, I call the shift in AI, I call it the axis shift. It's the new rules of marketing. It's what's going away, that it worked in 2022, but it definitely won't work. It was a green light then, but by 2027, it's a red light. And today it's just a yellow light. What are those things? Okay, then you have to set the foundations. What are those? You need to position yourself to be number 1 in a growing market. You need to dial in a unique selling proposition. Then there's make your business lovable. What does that mean? It means it runs like it's supposed to run. It runs on systems. It runs on processes. And then step 4 is, who's the ideal buyer? If it's you, then design it for you. If you want to sell your business to Starbucks because you're the best coffee grinder in the world and they would want you, then design it for Starbucks. And then you need to engineer a profitable exit. Now, those steps are kind of complicated and a lot of people get screwed. And one of the things I've been doing is I've been helping my clients navigate those things too. You have to navigate all 5 in order to get the equity out of your business. And again, even if you have no intention of ever selling it, or you keep it in the family or whatever, you still want a business that you want to own. And so in April 22 to 24, I'm holding an event called Equity 2.0. And what I decided to do in the first 2 hours of that is set the axis shift that you see on the left. I woke up about 3 weeks ago at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I started journaling, and I had this picture of the loop, or this bend that we are headed into. We're really full into the bend now. I think a few marketers have been keeping up with it. Most haven't. Most use AIs like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, they use them kind of like search engines. I think that's what the average person is doing. What advanced marketers, and I'll tell you a few stories in a minute, but I want to share with you what some of the advanced marketers are doing. And I will in a couple minutes, but in the first hour at Equity 2.0, I'm going to lay out a grid that says these were the old rules. These are the new rules. Here is where we're at in the transition. And then at 10 o'clock, an hour later, everybody's going to break into teams and they're going to use a custom GPT that we're developing to customize your technology and marketing plan to your exact business and industry. You're a butcher, you're a baker, you're a candlestick maker, you're a landscaping company, you're a software company, you're a media agency, you're a copywriter, whatever it is. We are going to map the transformation of how you define yourself starting today and going forward into 2026 and 2027 so you're fully ahead of the curve. And if by 11 a.m. the very first morning you have not received far more value than what you paid, I will refund your money plus $1,000 on the spot for your trouble and for your travel. So I want to jump to some case studies. And this guy right here, I'm curious in the chat, how many of you own a body of work, which means your company, by whatever means, possesses expertise on some specific area or some specific process? And this is the way you do it. It is not the way everybody else does it. And if somebody was to look at your hard drive and look at your website and look at your emails and look at your videos, they would say, oh, these people, they cut meat differently, or they make candles differently, or they bake bread differently, or they cut down trees differently. How many of you put a Y in the chat if that describes you? You have developed a set of expertise that is unique to you, and it solves a very particular set of problems. This is great. I am speaking to you. So Finn Peacock, the guy on the screen, he has a company that sends solar power installers to do quotes for people in Australia, homeowners who want solar power. And they developed a very specific set of approaches to how they do that. And Finn took all of their materials and programmed it into a chatbot. And every time a customer service ticket comes through, the chatbot answers the question. The answer goes to a person. The person checks the answer. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down. If it's thumbs up, it just goes right back to the person. If it's thumbs down, wait, the chatbot didn't do a very good job. We got to put it in the reject pile. And then they fix the database so the reject pile gets smaller and smaller every week. Now, this doesn't really seem like a big deal, and it wasn't at first. But once they had the thing dialed in, it cut the customer service load 30%. It cut the costs of servicing those requests 30%. it made the support manager's job easier and more interesting because now they're managing a chat bot rather than just answering all the questions. It took the repetitive, boring stuff out of the job and replaced it with interesting stuff. And it gets better every month. And that is a compound interest that people don't realize exists. And ChatGPT can't do this. Who can tell me in the chat, why can't ChatGPT do this? Anybody? What is it about Finn's business that ChatGPT or Google or Bing or Claude or Perplexity cannot do? Does anybody know? No agency. It doesn't outright know everything about Finn's business. Yes, that's close. Can't replicate his knowledge. They don't have the specific expertise. That is exactly right. The problem with ChatGPT is they can't curate solar power. They have access to the entire internet. They don't know which pages are right, which pages are wrong. They do the best to aggregate it all together and average out a reasonable answer. But when you're dealing with 480 volts AC, a reasonable answer could still electrocute somebody. ChatGPT is never going to solve that problem. Now, how many of you can go, well, they're not going to do that with my subject matter expertise either? If that's true, type in a Y. So like Rodrigo Del Campo is from South America, and he has a consulting service for retired CEOs. Is ChatGPT going to curate a set of information specific to his CEOs that solves their problem the way Rodrigo does? No. But if Rodrigo has an in-house knowledge engine trained on his process, and people are using it, then the more people use it, the better it gets, and the better it gets, and the more people use it, and the more people use it, the better it gets. And Rodrigo owns it. Well, Finn sold that company to a private equity group about 3 months ago for life-changing money. And I have a client about once every 2 or 3 months, one of my clients sells their company for 8 figures. And it happens over and over. And I'm going to talk about some more of these clients. Let me tell you about Mark Riffey. Mark was a general manager of a software company that makes architectural engineering software. It's really boring stuff. It calculates like the loads of steel beams and stuff like that. And about 4 years ago, Mark joined our roundtable group. And at the time, Mark was not the owner. He was working for the owner. The owner had promised him a piece of the company. They had never signed an agreement, but there was a verbal agreement that this was going to happen. And Mark knew that the owner was getting tired of running a company and wanted to retire. And they just hadn't really had the conversation. And one of our members kicked him in the shins and said, Mark, when are you going to have the conversation? And Mark gave his head a shake. He's like, I got to have this conversation. Mark got in writing from the owner, yes, if we sell this thing, you get part of it. A lot of people are afraid to ask for that conversation because it's a moment of truth. Well, if you wait until the company's being sold to have that conversation, you waited too long. And I've had clients who waited too long. and got screwed. So Mark went and he got it in writing. And then Mark, knowing that the company owner wanted to sell the company, decided to get actively involved. Mark knew he couldn't buy the company, but if he was involved in the process of selecting the buyer, not only would Mark get a windfall, but Mark would have a crack at what Mark really wanted to do, which is keep running the company after the company was sold. And that's exactly what happened. And about 2.5 years ago, they sold that company for $32 million. And Mark is the CEO, and he's still running it. And the company is growing very nicely. He is a member of our Advanced Mastery Network group. And I got to tell you, most of the time, when companies get sold, the people that stay on to run it usually don't remain happy. These things usually turn into a breakup. I think the reason that this has been a good relationship, Mark really likes the owners and they really like him, and the company is growing nicely, was we worked together to make it a good culture match. This is something we are good at that I don't think very many companies are good at, if I may be allowed to brag. I want to talk about this guy, Brady Roberts. Brady has a company that collects leads at trade shows. And companies rent his software and put it on their iPads so their employees at the trade show can collect leads. Brady's been a client of mine for at least 10 years, maybe 15. We have a long history together. And 5 years ago, we were right at the beginning of COVID. And Brady probably had the worst business of anybody in my client list, because trade shows are more affected by a pandemic than any other business I can think of. It's worse than exercise gyms. It's worse than concerts. They had been doing well. He suddenly had to cut 25 employees down to 8. They had to cut all their expenses to the bone, and we rode it all the way to the bottom with him. And we worked with him and we coached him. And then slowly, as the trade show business bounced back, Brady's company bounced back. And about 6 months ago, he sold that company for a bunch of money, life-changing money. Okay, here's another gentleman. Casey Graham was a classic information marketer coaching business. He was in the business of teaching pastors to talk to their congregations about money, which philosophy of money, biblical money ideas, getting congregations to give more and contribute more and be more generous, all of that kind of stuff. And he's doing newsletters and videos and webinars and seminars and coaching groups. And he came for a consultation. And he happened to this is 10 years ago, he happened to mention that they had an app that they were starting to get their clients to use to collect offering money. And I go, Casey, that's the real business right there. He goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, Casey, an information business like you run, like it's great. It's great for making a living for now, but it doesn't have a lot of long-term equity. It's hard to sell. Customers easily come and go. They can leave just as easily as they came. But an offering collecting business, like once a church starts using it, it's really hard for them to stop. That's your real business. I said, if you build that thing up, you can sell it. And 2 years later, he did sell it. And I want to show you a little diagram that I drew him. So the blue cone is an information marketing business. The red cone is a software as a service business, like collecting, offering donations with an app. In the info business that he came in with, it has a bunch of pros: fast startup, easy lead generation, rapid low-cost product development, rapid list building, rapid monetization. Like you can be up and running in a few months and make a living. But it has few tangible assets, it has low equity value, has a high churn rate. I said, Casey, that app has all equal and opposite strengths and weaknesses. It has real assets, high equity value, high stick rate, high long-term customer value, exactly the opposite of the cons. And then all the cons on the software side: long development type, hard to lead generate, complex and expensive product development, slow to build a list, slow to monetize. I said, if you piggyback the app on top of your existing business, you've got the best of both worlds. And he got it. Like the light bulb went on. And so he started building up his subscribers on the app, and he started talking to private equity investors. And there was this one guy every month, on the first of the month, he would text the guy all of his numbers from the previous month. And they came and they bought him for life-changing money. That's just a few equity stories that we have from my community. And like I said, about once every 2 or 3 months, we have another one. And this started happening so regularly, I said, there's a lot of business owners, they don't realize this is possible. They just do what they do. I was talking to Dennis just before we went live. Dennis said, most of my clients just do what they do. If they paint cars, they paint cars. If they run a body shop, they run a body shop. If they run an agency, they run an agency. And they don't really think about their business as an asset. They don't really think about, is my business sellable? They don't really think about, how do I get the maximum asset value out of my business? Anybody ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? That old book from the 90s? In the chat, how many of you, give me a Y if you ever read that book? I got a couple yeses. What does Rich Dad, Poor Dad say that an asset is? Anybody? Just give me a phrase or a sentence. What does the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, what is their definition of an asset? Taylor Moore, creates income. Yes. Something you own that makes you money, as opposed to something that requires you to get up out of bed and feed it every day. I want you to create a business that pays you rather than you working for it. And by April 22, 2025, I want you to already be running the business that is congruent with AI. And that's what we're here to do. And it goes back to, let me share my screen again. Sorry. I am confused about my.
Yeah, put a Y in the chat if you've been confused by the weird widgets and things in Zoom.
Okay, I think you can see my screen now. We are going to go through these 5 steps at the seminar. Some of you have been thinking about this, and you have a lovable business, and you just need to find your ideal buyer and get a profitable exit. If that's you, we have private equity people, we have angel investors, we have investment bankers, we have speed dating. And if that's you, we've got the right place for you to come and talk to people that you can trust. You might be at the make your business lovable point where it's not really very lovable right now, but it could be with some changes. And you're going to get the tools and the templates necessary to make those changes. You might be at the set the foundations point, which is there's really some major things you need to get dialed in before you can even seriously consider all the rest. And then a lot of people, I would say 60% of marketers, they don't even have the first part, the axis shift with technology right. And most businesses are fixable with this. I don't think there are very many marketing businesses that are hopeless, but there are a lot that will be if you don't start making some changes really soon. And like I said, in the first 2 hours, I am promising we are going to make this transition so clear and so simple, like you have never seen it before, that if it's 11 o'clock the first morning and you haven't already got your money's worth, then we'll refund you and send you home with an extra $1,000 for your travel. And I want to tell you about some things that we've put together within the last week. I've got a special speaker who is streaming in from Portugal, Richard Koch. Richard is a billionaire. Richard wrote the original book, The 80-20 Principle, which sold 1 million copies. Richard has grown his net worth from 4 million 40 years ago to 1.6 billion now. His return on capital is slightly better than Warren Buffett. And he's about 20 years younger. I did a $7,500 seminar with him 10 years ago. I did a $20,000 seminar with him 6 months ago. I think he is the most underrated business author. Richard is our keynote at the Equity 2.0 seminar. For those of you who sign up by midnight tonight, we're going to give you some videos from our $7,500 seminar that I did with Richard that are absolutely stunning. And I still have people who are making giant fortunes from that seminar 10 years ago. One of the people that came to that seminar as a direct result of what they learned at that seminar and a couple of conversations they had with me, they made an innovation in small business lending, and PayPal bought that company for $183 million. And when you log into PayPal and PayPal says, hey, would you like a small business loan? That is the business that we created together as a result of that seminar. So we've got April 22 to 24, 3 days. We've got deep dive sessions on focus, finance, business strategy. I've got insider stories. For example, this isn't all happy, happy, joy, joy. This is also some very cautionary tales. Clayton Mask has been a good friend of mine for a very long time. He's the CEO and founder of Infusionsoft, also known as Keep. That company was valued at 900 million in 2017. They got sold for 80 million last October. That's disappointing. It also could have been a lot worse. Clayton didn't make any money out of the deal. I was a shareholder. I didn't make any money out of the deal. Okay, so why is he come in speaking? Because he is willing to share his experience so you can learn from his mistakes. Clayton made some miscalculations that he paid for dearly. And what I love about Clayton is he cares about humanity enough to share his painful experiences rather than hide them. He has spoken to my coaching group several times, and he tells stuff that CEOs almost never tell. You need to know this stuff. We are going to have speed dating. Do you want people to invest in your company? Do you want people to buy your company? You can meet those people at this event. We have finance people. I find a lot of small business owners don't understand finance. They're paying 28% interest on credit cards. They can't get lines of credit. They're trying to grow their company. They're trying to bootstrap everything. You need financial acumen. I have finance experts and small business lending experts that'll tell you how to finance the growth of your company in a really strategic way. You're going to understand the pitfalls of working with investment banks and private capital. We're going to have an expert roundtable evening where you can go around to any table you want and you can just sit and talk with the other people that are at the table. There'll be an expert running each table. You want to talk to an investment banker, you want to talk to a mergers and acquisitions expert, you want to talk to a lending expert, you want to talk about somebody about small business growth strategies. You're going to get that. April 22 to 25, it's in Naperville, Illinois. You can go to O'Hare or Midway airports, which are very easy airports to get to. You can register at perrymarshall.com/wealth. And I think Dennis also had a bonus that he wanted to throw in.
Yep. So if you guys sign up for this seminar by midnight tonight and reference me, then as part of this, I will interview you on my podcast, and that will help your SEO. That'll help you rank a lot better. I've got a domain rating 63, and my ebook site has 500,000 visitors a day from Google. So
Wow.
reframing your business, getting the foundation right, not getting in the crash Hot Wheels loop. There's if you doing this, improving your business, and then being able to talk about your business is a great combo. So if you do that, I'll throw that in, no extra charge, which you got to buy by tonight.
perrymarshall.com/wealth. We have a discount for Dennis's clients. Instead of paying $44.90, you can sign up for $39.90 when you register now. Guests are $14.90, and payment plans are available. All you have to do is email Edith at perrymarshall.com, and our staff will talk to you about payment plans. No problem there. Also, I have a fast action bonus today, which is I handpicked a set of training materials for this seminar, including the best session from our $7,500 seminar we did 10 years ago. And I consider this absolutely foundational education for anybody that wants to build a valuable business. Like I said, I think Richard Koch is the most underrated business author. He is absolutely brilliant, and his concepts are so much simpler than most people's. There's a lot of billionaires in the world. Most of them have extremely complicated lives, and they work 14 hours a day, and they have huge staff. Richard has one personal assistant. He does his financial calculations. He doesn't even use spreadsheets. He uses a Hewlett Packard 12C financial calculator from 30 years ago. There is a wisdom and a shrewdness that you will get from Richard that I've never seen anywhere else. And I want to give you these bonuses for signing up before midnight tonight, March 20. And like I said, if it's 11 a.m. the very first morning and you haven't already gotten your money's worth, I'll send you home with an extra $1,000. I know how good this is going to be. And again, you can sign up at perrymarshall.com/wealth.
Amazing.
Throw in one additional factor here. So if you have like active questions, I know a lot of people in our community have all, you're going to have logistical questions. You're going to have questions about value. There's going to be clarifying things. I'm going to put my cell phone number in the chat. Please do not put it on a robocalling site. Somebody put my number somewhere and I've gotten like 10 a day for the last 4 days. Please don't do that. But you are welcome to reach out to me directly. That is my cell phone number. I've worked with Perry for years. I'm Perry's son. I've got inside, outside perspectives. I can work with you on any of the questions that you have specifically. I'd love for you to get the outpouring of bonuses that Dennis and Perry are so generously bringing to the table here. But of course, you're going to have further comments, questions, concerns. I can handle that for you. No problem. That's my cell phone number right there. If you're calling international, just put a 1 in front of it. You know how American phone numbers work. I really look forward to talking with you guys. Perry, Dennis, I mean, guys, this has been awesome. It's so good to have you here.
perrymarshall.com/wealth. And I just want to remind you, you want your Hot Wheels car to go all the way around the loop and get to this part. And it doesn't happen if you don't give it a good enough push. And you know what? You're probably going to dump some baggage on the way through that loop. You're probably going to throw some things out the window to make the car lighter. And that's going to happen. There are things that a lot of marketers are doing now that they're turning into yellow lights. They're not really working very well anymore, and they're not going to work at all in a year or so. Let's dump that stuff. Let's replace it with stuff that is going to work. And let's build a business that's valuable to you, that's a rich dad, poor dad, like a rich dad, real asset. Dennis, any final thoughts from you?
A lot of us, we work so hard. We're in the weeds, in the business, firefighting, and not realizing that really the business, if we step a level above, our business could be working for us and funding our dreams and our families and the things that we want to do. And there's nothing wrong or greedy about being wealthy or about being successful. When you can structure your business using the AI tools, being around the right people, getting around the blind spots on how do you organize and finance and lend and structure around other people like Perry and this whole community, then you're able to unlock value. And when you have more value, you can do more things for yourself, for causes that you care about, for your life's mission. Don't squander your life's mission because you're stuck in the same pattern. Sometimes you need a pattern interrupt, and AI is I'm not one of those like, hey, the AI is this and AI is that, but there's an opportunity where we will crash or we will succeed. And I think that this is the best seminar I've seen, that because Perry's curated this carefully, that this gives us the best shot of being in the right place. So I believe you guys should check this out. Hit up Kyler if you have questions. Hit me up. I'm here to support you guys as well.
Yeah.
If you get this, I want to support your business too. I want to push some of the SEO juice that I have as a former search engine engineer.
This is
And I'm
awesome.
so glad, Perry, that you came to speak in front of our community. What a
Thank
great
you for-
honor.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I love the questions and the interaction from everybody in the chat. So I will see some of you folks in Chicago, April 22. And thanks so much for your time today. And just ask yourself the question, am I working for this business, or is this business working for me? Take care, everybody. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Kyler.
Thank you.